WeAfric is on a mission to make real change by facilitating solutions for our everyday lives. We'll be joined by professionals and influential individuals to share with you their journey and recipe for success. We ask about their methods and experience. Is it their career, their education, or is it their background? This is our secret sauce to enlighten, uplift, and empower the community where we are all special. Welcome to WeAfric Tips, where our support is our actions. If they don't believe you, tell them to subscribe to this channel. Welcome, my beautiful people. In this video, we have 10 practical tips for getting into directing and producing TV and film with our special guest, Paul Samuels. You learn some unique strategies for growing fast that we can all apply. Coming up, please welcome our special guest, Paul Samuels.
And I'm going to caveat this by saying this list is not in order of priority,
Okay.
but they are all equally as valuable.
Okay.
So yeah, let's start. So the first thing I would advise anybody wanting to get into the media production world, video production, film, etc., television, advertising, it all starts with a thought. And people underestimate the amount of planning that goes into one day. So plan your shoots.
Okay.
Plan it well. So that would be one of the things I would say you have to do. And when I say plan, I mean go deep into every detail, location, the time the sun is up in that location and sundown. If you need any permits, parking, transportation for people who are coming in, what's the journey time for people? Like, those degrees of detail are necessary when they're planning. And go and look at the location before filming. Go and scout your location and scope it out fully. Take pictures of it before filming.
Okay.
So that's the first tip. Another tip, to achieve excellence, you have to, and I repeat, the fundamental rule of thumb is to always be driven and let your production be focused around the vision. So let the vision be the fundamental basis that you build everything on. And I encourage you as the creative director or the director behind the production to always remain true to the core of the vision, the core of the message. Don't get me wrong, other people in the team will add their pieces to that puzzle or add intricacies to make that picture fill out and be more beautiful. But the fundamental core of that message, the fundamental root of that vision has to come from you. You direct everything outwards and people add to that. So always remain true to your vision and try when possible not to dilute it. So a common phrase that people get with me when I feel like my vision is being trampled, the phrase I use is, I don't want to dilute my vision.
Okay.
So when you feel like your vision is being diluted, you need to step back or you remove people from the vision that are diluting. So that's my second tip. Third tip, seek a professional course or invest in yourself and train. Why should you do that? 3 fundamental reasons. 1, your net worth is your network. 9 times out of 10, when you do a professional vocational course, the people that you will encounter on that course are people who are looking at that particular vocation as something that they seriously want to consider as a way of making a living. So their approach to the work or the craft is somewhat different to someone who's looking at it from a hobby perspective.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to kind of sign up to professional courses, not just because of the learning that you will ultimately achieve, that goes without saying, but the people that you will connect with tend to be people that are driven from a professional motivational standpoint. So you could tap into that said professional network and use that network to leverage where you want to be, especially if you're someone who is coming in as a novice. You don't know the types of people and experience that you're going to meet in those environments. You probably meet people that have been doing it for 10 years, 20 years. I don't know how many years, but sometimes it's very, very common an occurrence to meet individuals that have been doing it for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, and they just want to go to top up on what they
Okay.
already know.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're tapping into that exposure just by being there. And if you build a rapport with someone, who knows what happens after that. The human interface and relationship is important. The second thing is you learn the rules of the game. When I say the rules of the game, believe it or not, there's a structure to making a film, and there's a structure to making a TV show. There's a rule of thumb for every single TV show, advert, film, whatever you want to call it. There is a formula to doing it.
Okay.
When you go in at that level, you learn the formula. And in order to break the formula, you need to understand what the formula is.
Okay.
When you see, and it's
Yeah.
very easy to identify someone who doesn't know what they're doing when you're looking at a production because of the fact that they don't know the formula
Yeah.
compared to someone who does. So there are people, for example, Quentin Tarantino, the first film he made, he completely broke the structure of telling a narrative in film. But
Yeah.
the reason why he got away with it is because though he broke the structure, he still used the structure to tell the story. But the way he broke the structure was so groundbreaking at the time. Hence, he won so many Academy Awards talking about the film Pulp Fiction. But
Okay.
yeah, it's important to know the rules of the game in order to play with it and get away with playing with it. And the third and most important is iron sharpens iron. So when you go to these types of vocational professional courses, you meet people with skill sets and knowledge, like I said, that might be equal to yours or might not be. But even if you come across someone that has a similar skill set or experience to yours, you can both learn off of each other. And
Yeah.
iron, like I said, sharpens iron, so you can both build together. And who knows, you could potentially build a little production partnership because Lord knows buying equipment and kit probably half the reason why people don't continue in film production because it's a very, very expensive venture to a profession to take on. So if you can meet someone who's trustworthy, go half some kit, etc., it's beneficial to all of you. So yeah, that's another reason. So that's my third tip. My fourth, and this is probably one that I'm hoping will resonate not just in this particular industry, but in every industry that
Okay.
that anyone wants to, pursue as their lifelong, dream. Never chase a check, always chase the experience.
Okay.
And why do I say that? Because the experience ultimately is limitless and is priceless. If you go for a job or if you go for any type of interview or any type of meeting about any particular role, it's the last thing anyone who's seriously wanting to hire your services 9 times out of 10 will really scrutinize. Well, they do scrutinize it, to be fair, but 9 times out of 10, if you're worth your salt, it has no relevance in the conversation. But the last thing that they ask is, how much before they make their decision. The thing that really weighs most people, sways people into wanting to hire you or not, is the experience that you have and the exposure that you have.
Yeah.
So the more exposure and the more experience, basically by default, means the more money you can demand.
Yes, of course.
So if you have more experience in a shorter period, unfortunately, people still think old school in the sense that they look at the years of experience and assume that because you've done something for a certain amount of years, that means you've got loads of experience. Arguably, within reason, that is a justifiable reason for having that approach. But it's another valid argument to say that people can experience the same things in a shorter period of time if they put themselves out there and get maximum exposure. So that's why experience is very, very important. So if you're taking out productions and you're, I don't know, a runner or you're something, a runner or a production assistant, don't look at that and think, oh my God, I didn't get paid, so why should I do? No, 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 no. The fact is you've got the exposure and you've got the experience, and there's things that you probably wouldn't have ever learned if you didn't get that exposure and experience that you can now use and leverage to move you one step closer to whatever it is you want to achieve. And ultimately, that is the end goal, just getting closer to that vision. So chase experience. Don't chase the check.
So basically, it's not where you're starting from, but it's where you're actually aiming to end up in.
That's what's more important. Absolutely.
And in terms of the experience, does it really matter whether your experience is just in one country or within that country or abroad, or it doesn't really have much of an influence?
Countries do make a big difference.
Okay.
And that's actually that's something that contradicts what I'd said earlier. But when I reflect and I think about it critically, someone who's had 10 years worth of experience, someone who's had 5 years worth of experience in Hollywood, will demand more money and respect on the set than someone who's had 10 or 20 years worth of experience in Nollywood. And the reason for that is because the production values are totally different.
Okay.
Like Hollywood production values are 10 million, billion, actually I can say billion, 10 billion times more expensive and richer than Nollywood.
Yeah.
So by default, 3 years in Hollywood would demand the utmost respect in Nollywood. So it's horses for courses. But bottom line is, if you invest in your production values, and you get the right exposure within a finite window of time, you can demand more.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
It's important to pick the right location. So, like I think I alluded to that before. I'm going to skip that as a tip because I kind of alluded to that before. So the 5th tip is invest in the correct sound equipment. If there's anything I would say you need to part money with when you're starting up as an amateur, I'd say you don't have to necessarily buy the most expensive camera kit. Like you can get, if the story is bigger than your kit, it will leverage getting the right attention, as long as the story and the narrative is great. If they can't hear what the person is saying, that's an issue. And I think if we're looking at the continent as a whole, the biggest downside to our production values is we still haven't understood the importance of investing in good sound. Like our sound for our Nollywood films, or any film to be fair, that I've seen is crap. And I'm using nice words, but it's really poor. And we'll keep it on production value standards. Yeah, it's very poor. And there's no excuses. Like, there's no excuses for having bad production values at this level of exposure that we have. We see what happens in Hollywood. We see what happens in Nollywood. All the other industries.
Yeah.
We know what the basic standards are for sound, and yet we're still accepting bog standard sound production for what we're classifying as big movie production titles. And for me, I don't know who's quality controlling those films, but it's unacceptable. How do you expect to pick up major awards, because the industry is very much driven by standards that are award based. So how do you expect to win international acclaim and awards if you're not competing on the same level, on an equal level? And things like sound have to be hashed out as a basic. I didn't mean to rant, but
I was going to then ask you, in terms of the sound, what kind of equipment could you advise them to get a certain type of equipment, post-production in a different way, something like this? I'm not sure how it all kind of works.
Yeah, so I would say always double mic.
Double mic?
Don't ask me the specific sounds, the specific mics to get, because I'm not a sound engineer. So I stay in my lane. But I'm smart enough to know when I'm doing things, I need to hire a sound engineer.
Okay.
Because that's not my thing.
Yeah.
So because of that, I definitely recommend based on what I've seen professional sound engineers do on my set, they always double mic. So when I say double mic, I mean you have a boom mic and you have the subject cabled up as well.
Okay.
Don't depend on just one.
Okay.
Have the boom mic and clip-on mic as well.
Okay.
To capture the sound. And that's not even like, that's basic. That's not even like me going into the deep intricacies that a sound engineer would be looking out for.
Yeah.
But you can get away with, I'd say, potentially advertising, broadcasting level. If you just, not advertising. I'd say online standards, relatively decent standards. If you do that for audio, investing in a separate mic. So when you buy your camera, don't rely on the mic that comes with it as your audio source. Invest in a separate audio that will set you leaps and bounds above the rest.
Okay.
The sixth tip, before you start on any production, if you're being briefed from, if your skills are being hired as a service, always make sure that your concept is approved before you start any work.
Okay.
And get that approval in writing, so you can use that as a go-to if there's any kind of misunderstanding. Try and minimize the commitment that you put out there to something if it's not officially in writing, because disappointments will happen. It's just easier to manage expectations if you do it like that.
Okay, so if you, for example, you win the contract to do the film, you do the production, and then before you actually start to film, you should get approval. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, and the approval comes from the company that would have hired you initially?
Yes.
Okay.
Ideally, don't do anything until you receive a deposit as well. The seventh rule, and this sounds a bit contradictory because I said it in the early stages, like stay true to the vision.
Yeah.
You know, but then in saying that, don't be too precious about your ideas. The reason why it sounds contradictory is because you're probably thinking, well, Paul, you said we have to stay true to our vision, don't dilute our vision. And that's true. What I'm saying when I say don't be too precious with your ideas, I mean there's like stages in developments of an idea.
Okay.
So in the initial pitching stage, you might have an idea that rings true to you and you believe it's the only possible direction that client might want to move in.
Yeah.
And they have a completely different idea. So in that stage, I'd say just have an arsenal of ideas in your head that you can adapt in accordance to what input and feedback you get from your client. But once you get that approval from the client and they sign off, say, yes, this is what we want. Yeah. After that stage, I believe it's too far gone to then retract the idea, because what the client doesn't understand is, although for them it's just a simple idea, in your head, you've already probably aligned with creative director on that idea. You've probably aligned with motion graphics people. You've probably aligned with a location, and you've probably visited the location. You're probably aligned with a soundtrack. So you've spoke to the people that, do the audios. You've already pretty much signed off or got approval on the licensing for that. So all of these, you've aligned with like the talent. You've probably started drafting scripts. So all of these things are happening behind the scenes, and the client, all they know is you just presented an idea that they approve. They're not privy to all of this stuff that you've done in the background. So for them to come and even change something minute, it has to have a lot of weight behind the reason for the change, because it impacts everything else.
Yeah.
So just make sure that, and if it is a change, it has to be something that adds value, but adds to the agreed vision, as opposed to completely changes the direction of it, because literally that's like starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there's no issues around doing that. That can happen.
Yeah.
But only if there's time and budget.
Okay.
If those two constraints aren't there, if those two things are constraints, then it's not really something that's worth discussing. It's better to just progress and trust the vision. The eighth wonder. Yes. Be prepared to freestyle some of your production on the day. This is another reason why when I plan to detail, but I allow space for mishap and for things to go wrong and for people not to turn up. because true to form, things like that, no matter how hard you try and plan, things never go according to plan. The matter of fact, the only thing I can guarantee you is that things won't go according to plan. It makes sense to prepare for that unfortunate likelihood and be able to react in an agile way when those things happen. Do not, if you're the production lead or the director, have a meltdown. People don't turn up or certain things don't happen, because that energy is sapped into by the production team. Like, you're the person that kind of steers that team, and they feed off your energy. So if you're flustered, if you're having a meltdown, you're effing and blinding, just bringing negative vibes, that just can't work. So if you're on my set, I try and keep everything positive. I keep everyone in a very good kind of headspace. It doesn't matter what's happening. I don't let the subject matters or the team know if things aren't working according to plan. Like, I deal with that with my, partner in crime is on the day, but I try and keep everything positive. I keep it very chilled, and it's just a nice vibe. You've got to keep them in that headspace. So 9 is stay in your lane and remain confident. But the point I'm making is know your value and be confident in that.
Okay.
So when you come into a production, when you're speaking to your client, just know your value in what you're doing. And as long as you understand that what you're doing is of value to any person that either you're speaking to, or if you're interning or whatever, even if they try and make it out like you're the intern and if anything, you should be grateful. Even interns bring value to a production that can't actually exist without their little, 2 pence worth of energy, or whatever you want to call it, £2 million worth of energy. Like, it's invaluable. My point is, just know you're bringing something that is unique, which is you, and you're worth whatever it is the discussion is. So it should be unquestionable. This is 10, right?
Yes.
Woo! You made it to 10, people. And finally, number 10, be prepared to work hard. And when I say hard, I mean harder than your rival.
Okay.
There's a saying that, why do I say that? So there's a saying that, and to be fair, I think it's true for any industry. In order to master industry or skill set, you have to be a minimum. The formula is you have to be prepared to put in 10,000. I think it's 10,000 hours.
Yeah, 10,000 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be prepared, and it's an actual mathematical equation that correlates to every industry, whether it's martial arts, whether it's arts and crafts, whether it's science, whatever that thing is that you're saying you want to master. Don't get me wrong, there's a difference between wanting to master something, which basically is announcing you're one of the best in the world in your field, and just wanting to learn it. So if you're looking to take this on and you want to master it, be prepared to work hard and be willing to put in, by any means necessary, your 10,000 hours, which is why when you look at it, if you have to put in 10,000 hours in order to become that pillar of excellence in your field, volunteering and doing work in that industry really doesn't matter, because it's just adding up to your 10,000 hours. But it's no real big deal. You're still going to get the benefits from that. 1, 2, 10,000 hours, I believe, roughly works out to being 5 years worth of experience in any particular subject. So if you're starting now and you're of a certain age and demographic, you definitely need to figure out how to get in those 10,000 hours without it, impacting on your life expectancy. The best way to do it is ultimately if it's a passion that exists within you and is fueled through your passion. Because I believe when you're doing something that is from the heart, or is your God-given assignment on the planet, 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours, 20 million hours, it will never ever feel like work for you. So you'll be able to cruise through the requirements to become a master in it and hard on it. The passion is what's fueling you. Whereas if you're doing it for a check, doing it for money, you will clock out when it hits 7 o'clock or whatever the time is, and you will never ever achieve the degree of excellence that's necessary to becoming that master because of that mindset. So if you have the right mindset and you work hard, you will achieve. And that's the 10th tip that I have for expect anyone wanting to jump into this. Just
Wow.
be prepared to work hard.
That's quite incredible, honestly. I just think all these tips will be so different and yet so much aligned that if you do one, it correlates to the other, and vice versa. And, you almost have to be a jack of all trades in the sense of the word, that you need to know a little bit of everything, but you must know everything. It's quite incredible. I'm blown away, just to think about it. Because, I do a little bit of film editing and filming and mini productions, but I think your scale is like the next scale up, shooting home, abroad. Incredible. Wow. I think for all the people out there looking to get into film, you do really need a lot of commitment, hard work, understanding that you need to have contacts, get some schooling and professional experience behind your belt, and just love what you do. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to be cashing out early. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, man. And I hope to someone out there, I wish everyone that hears this and wants to pursue this every success.
Thank you so much. I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of people out there who wants to get into film. As Paul mentioned, you don't have to buy the most expensive equipment. You can start with whatever you have at the moment and just work your way up. But the most important thing, don't forget the sound. Okay?
Yeah.
So the sound.
100%. 100%.
Check. Paul is going to come and check you out. So, yeah.
Yeah,
man. We just like to say, for all our viewers, just leave your comments below and see if you have got any value out of this. Just let us know. Comment below and say hello. And we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, stay walking in vision. Don't forget, we are freak. I am because we are. Peace and blessings.
We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. What was your favorite tip? Leave your comments down below. Be part of the WeAfric family. Like, subscribe, and share. And remember, we're here to shake things up, reverse the flow, and be great. I am because we are.